is everything that we're perceiving as chaos or randomness actually just disguised pattern. In the beginning, nobody else could see them. Now everyone goes in there. Once they see it, they can't unsee it. We are dimensionally limited avatars, and we are awakening to these patterns that we thought were entropic. There's still more dimensions ahead of us that we just don't comprehend yet. There are 6-dimensional beings. Arcturians are just future humans. And they've been here all along, but Earth has not been vibrating at the frequency of perception of that. Our brains are radio receivers, and our heart is the tuning dial. And we can tune into different frequencies of future states and timelines. Maybe the speed of light isn't really the speed of light, but rather the speed of our perception. Babylon is actually a reference to the Egyptian god Thoth. The original Babylon, I believe very firmly, was actually in Egypt. I just wrote this. I've not talked about this on any other podcast. The big aha since we last talked is the criticality of achieving authenticity. Authenticity is the most important aspect of where we are in this stage of awakening in the world. And so people ask me all the time, what's the difference between authenticity and just unconditional love, or authentic love versus unconditional love? And I've spent a lot of time contemplating this subject. And you may have heard me before say that I believe that the opposite of love is actually judgment. It's not, I don't believe it's fear. I don't believe that it is hatred. There's a fine line between love and hate. I believe that it's actually conditionality. So conditionality leading to judgment. So everything in our world is based on some form of judgment, but we just don't realize how our own conditioning biases inform those judgments. Because the things that benefit us are the things that we choose to do, and we say that it's for the public benefit or for the public good, when actually it's self-interest. It's self-interest disguised through the mask of our personas. And we simply say, oh yeah, I'm doing this for the benefit of all, when actually it's truly some form of corruption at its base. The corruption is that, yeah, I forgot to mention that, I get paid on the side for this, or I'm benefited because of that, or socially I'm benefited, reputationally I'm benefited. And so every single thing that we advocate for, that we think is for some other higher good or benefit, is actually for our own benefit and good first and foremost. And so what happens is we all can easily say, oh yes, it's all about unconditional love. But the truth is, if you don't know your own darkness, then you cannot really say that you achieve unconditional love for yourself and for others. Because if you're in the dark, and that's the notion of unconscious mind, the unconscious mind is by its very nature in darkness. It's not conscious to you. So you have to actually do the exploration to understand. You have to plunge the depths of your soul to understand what is your darkness and how does it manifest. And then learn how to accept that aspect of you. Because until you do, you will simply judge that aspect negatively, unconscious to you, and it will project in the world around you. Because everything that you judge is what you will attract until you no longer judge what you attracted. You follow what I'm saying? So authentic love means that you have to actually do the work of shadow integration to understand your darkness and how it manifests, and then learn to accept that, which becomes tantamount to you learning to accept it in the world around you. And this is, such an important aspect of the awakening process, that we have to be willing to confront our own darkness and embrace it. And until we can embrace our own darkness and become authentic and aware of that darkness, then we will only live in a world of more and more judgment that then leads to more and more projections.
There is a connotation there, though, that this is like I think we run the risk of making it sound like it's a one and done sort of conversation as well, like embrace your darkness and off you go. It's a lifetime's worth of work in there. We'll continue to do that over and over and over and over again, right?
Oh yeah, no, it never ends, right? That's the thing. Know thyself are the two words that Socrates basically put out there. Is probably someone else besides him, before him. But the fact is, those are the two simple words that are the most difficult things that we will ever do. Because there's no end to the self. The self is just separated. We're divided. An eye can't see itself without the aid of a mirror.
Mm.
Likewise, consciousness cannot perceive itself without dividing itself into you and me.
Mm.
I wrote a little poem once, right, which was, I would tear myself in two just for the purpose of meeting you.
That's beautiful. I really love that.
The one divides itself into the many for the joy of perceiving itself through our unique eyes of perspective and perception.
This is where it starts to get really, really interesting, because on one hand, and maybe this is what you were talking about recently, where the logos needs to live within the ethos, because on one hand, there's the universe dividing itself, and it's got this like more, I don't call it ephemeral, but like it's this, there's a curiosity there, and I don't know if you can measure that. But then when I come across your work, it's like, can you see the patterns of it all? And it's like, it's all enmeshed and embedded within itself. And these are quite, for the layperson, these things live at polarities. And yet for yourself, they're one and conjoined as an exploration.
Absolutely.
Can you unpack that for us?
Yes. I mean, okay, so I'll start with darkness. There's a lot of people in the world of physics that believe that darkness is simply the absence of light. Is that really true? And I would propose to you that it's not, because there's no such thing as absolute darkness. As soon as you make a vacuum, so one of the big challenges is to make a vacuum that has nothing in it. And as soon as you do, there's something called the Casimir effect that comes out of it. For some reason, even though you've sucked every particulate out, every electron, everything out of the vacuum, as soon as you get to a perfect vacuum, a hydrogen atom appears.
Just randomly?
Just randomly. Well, it's not random. They know it. It's a pattern. It happens all the time. You cannot make a perfect vacuum. Wow. It's impossible. So this is called the Casimir effect. It's well known in physics. So is there a function of, as soon as you get to a vacuum state, that somehow the universe in its vacuum produces another atom of hydrogen that just pops in?
It's a whole new theory on a vacuum abhors itself.
That's right. Exactly. So the point being is there's really no such thing as a vacuum. It's probably why mathematically 0 to the power of 0, nothing to the power of nothing, the true correct answer for that is actually 1. Nothing to the power of nothing is 1. Now, how do you get to that? I'll show you. So, and this actually has big implications from the standpoint, I gave this presentation at the Vatican, in fact. And it was on proving God through mathematics. So if I take 0, right? And let's say I want to start with a number that's small, right? So like 0.5 to the power of 0.5. So that takes this x to the y right here of 0.5. Just like that. You see that? 0.5 to the power of 0.5?
Yep.
Equals 0.707. So now let's say that I divide both of those numbers by 10, and I go 0.05 to the power of 0.05. 0.86, it's bigger. So now I take 0.000005, so I've got 5 zeros there, to the power of 0.000005, just like that. 0.9999999.
Seems to be trending.
So 0.0005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 5 to the power of 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 5. What's happening?
We're getting asymptotic towards 1.
That's exactly
the smaller
right.
we get 0 to 0.
So it's not just a mathematical rule that says anything to the power of 0 is going to equal 1. It is actually that correctly. So nothing to the power of nothing equals everything. Because the 1 can divide infinitely. And that's what we call our universal experience. We are all separations or divisions of the number 1. So that it can perceive itself. So there's no such thing then as nothingness, because nothing to the power of nothing still creates everything.
This is where our conversations become very Mobius trippy.
Yeah, it does. So this is where you start to ask, why does the one divide itself? For the joy of perceiving itself so that it can see itself. And an eye can't see itself without the aid of a mirror. How could I see it's myself without looking through a camera or some sort of mirror reflection?
Well, my decoding of that is that fundamental to the fabric of everything must therefore then be curiosity, because why would it, like, that would have, is what it's set on its course. Like, that's what set one on its course to look in on itself, right? Must have been curiosity, or is there, what is it in your mind?
I see it as, I just did a podcast recently with an expert on general AI.
Yep.
And general AI is this quest to be able to get AI to the point where it can understand and comprehend emotions like a human being. So then I started thinking, how would you comprehend emotional states?
Compute them in.
Okay, but it's subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Emotional states, you can have two people have the exact same experience and have two different emotional states as a result of those experiences.
Siblings have that all the time.
All the time. So what does that mean? How does that comport? Just think about that for a second. So Donald Hoffman, who's a cognitive neuroscientist at UCI, is a friend of mine. He came and spent the day with me one day, and he said, Robert, can you give me an idea of how to create a math equation for human emotion? And I said, gosh, I haven't had my coffee yet today, so let me think of that one through. And I flew to, the next day I was flying to Salzburg, Austria, the music capital of the world, one of the music capitals, arguably, the birthplace of Mozart. And on the plane, I was watching a movie, and in the movie there was a love scene, and the love scene had, I noticed a preponderance of a certain musical interval, which is da-da, da-da, which is a major third. And then at the point of the movie where they were breaking up, the hero and the heroine, the couple, then they were changing the tonality and the intervals to not da-da, which was the love scene, to da-da, da-da. It's the same notes. It's just C and E played in reverse and the C now in the higher octave. Da-da, da-da. Somehow, I noticed that this was the way the music was going. And so I started to look to see on the plane. I had Wi-Fi. So I was like, is there some research that shows a correlation between filmology and musicology of what intervals to play to set the stage for certain emotional states, to entrain emotional states? And it turns out I found it. And it said that the major third was love, romantic love. And the minor sixth, its opposite, the da-da, da-da, the minor sixth was heartbreak. And I realized the only difference between the two is you could depict it in the form of a triangle, which is the height of the major third is 5 and the base is 4 of a right triangle. And its inverted pairing, which would be the minor sixth, because the third has to add to a sixth in order to make a ninth, because everything comes out in completion at ninth. Right? So a perfect fourth has to add to a perfect fifth. A minor second has to add to a major seventh. Mm-hmm. Everything adds to 9, right? Mm-hmm. So I looked at this. I noticed that, yes, there was peer-reviewed research that showed emotional states and entrainment of emotional states from musicology and music interval in particular, and that each of the music intervals had a different emotional state that it could entrain you to. So then I thought, well, wait a minute. Does this actually mean that when we're looking at architecture, something with that proportion of 5/4 and its opposite would be 8/4, or 8/5, excuse me? 8/5, you have to double the base. So if it's 5/4, you double the base to find the opposing interval, and that becomes 8/5, right? So that's the relationship now. Mm-hmm. And that creates this proportion that gives you this da-da-da-da relationship. So then I realized, wait a minute. So the major third equals romantic love. The minor sixth equals heartbreak. Does this mean that in the experience of romantic love is already embedded the seed of heartbreak? Just looking at it from a different time perspective, like a Mobius strip?
Forwards versus backwards.
And that actually how we experience it becomes entirely subjective. So the heartbreak could easily go from being the worst thing that ever happened to you to becoming the best thing that ever happened to you. That somehow time has a way of healing and changing our polarity of perspective. That the motion of time itself has some effect on this. So then I looked at the other ones, and the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth were stability and loyalty. And then you get to the diminished fifth. Diminished fifth is the tritone, the devil's tritone, which is like this really sad, awkward feeling, which is based on the square root of 2 multiplied by a unison note. And then I looked at all of the other ones, and so like major second and the minor seventh. The minor seventh was tragedy. Each one of them had a different emotional state that people had basically attached themselves to. And so then I started thinking, well, Donald, I think there is a solution because these are mathematical intervals. They're Pythagorean triple intervals that are actually determining an entrainment preponderance towards certain emotional states.
You inspired soul. Thank you to all of you that are subscribed to this channel. Thank you so much for your incredible love and your support. Everything you see around here is powered and empowered by your subscription to the channel. Now, I just want to take a quick second as well to invite all of you that aren't yet subscribed to the channel to please do so. Take a moment. As I'm saying the word subscribe, the button below is lighting up in the colors of the inspired evolution. Please hit that button, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification icon that then pops up afterwards, and you'll be notified of all the episodes that are coming out. We do 2 episodes like this every week. And like I said, everything you see around here is gratefully powered and empowered by your subscription to this channel. So thank you so much in advance for your incredible love and support. And with that, back to Robert on today's episode. It's somewhat subjective still though, because I've heard in places in like Thailand, they have, like for them, it's the inverse of the Western scale. They actually find minor pleasing and major, they play major at their funerals. So they have like different connotations with the major scale to the minor scale than what we do in the West. So it's still somewhat.
Yeah, so there are
embedded.
cultural aspects of this that basically also lead to this because there are certain, like when I lived in South Korea, for example, you know, I remember I learned a Korean joke.
Oh, yeah.
And Korean jokes, I mean, I speak Korean fluently, and Korean jokes are, even if you speak fluently, it's hard to understand them because they're all like kind of depressing. It's like Greek tragedy type stuff. It's like a Korean joke is there were 3 birds on an electric wire and they all got electrocuted.
That's the end of the joke?
That's the end of the joke.
Oh, man. It's brutal. I'd rather you didn't entertain me, to be honest.
So humor is subjective, right? Humor is totally subjective. But notwithstanding all of that, when we look at averages, right? This is what, because I could look at the Menkaure pyramid and it has a 5/4 proportion. But if I'd just gotten over a heartbreak, I might look at it and notice that it has an 8/5 proportion, which makes me think of heartbreak. So it's for the place that I'm coming from that contextualizes my experience with it. So I don't experience the world as it is, rather I experience it as I am. My biases, my conditioning biases, my narratives, my internal narratives and belief systems become the cage of my own experience. That's the only matrix we live in. It's the belief that we have in the matrix that we're living in and the limitations that we're experiencing. Consciousness can only expand to the volume of the cage of your belief system. So life here is in large part about learning how to unlearn what we have learned, deconstruct what we have created as the barnacles, the erosion and corrosion of our belief system that limits us.
So it's the belief
That's the only real victimhood.
So the belief
create
systems,
our own experience.
Is the belief systems what's keeping us entrenched in this matrix? But then also, correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to believe something new, you still have to adopt a new belief. So it's just a new matrix, right? And this is where geometry, like, yeah, how does, like, because you can't escape believing something. You've got to believe something, right? Or can you just be beliefless?
I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is learn how to observe without judgment. Being able to observe yourself becomes a fundamental aspect of being able to understand and become aware of your own darkness. So I've had to face those issues myself. What are the things that I, have experienced? What are the things that I have done? And one of the things that, in my path to become entirely authentic, I'll tell you something kind of funny that's very personal. I just came to this realization.
Sure. Tell me.
So I'm single, right? I'm single, and
Mhm.
I don't like hurting anyone. So when I date someone, I have to be kind of careful on this because the last time I was this authentic, like someone got hurt. So I don't want to.
Take your time. Take your time. We appreciate it. Take your time.
So I don't like hurting anyone, and I judge myself negatively for hurting people. Not hurting because, what's the aftermath? What's the autopsy of a broken relationship?
Yeah.
Right? And I believe relationships come into our lives so that we can find reflections of ourselves. We get triggered by it so that we can learn ourselves better.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I realized is that, I've always had this desire not to break anyone's heart. So I've been very open and transparent in my mind. I'll tell someone, okay, I just got over a relationship. I'm not really ready to go into another relationship. I'm ready to have a, friendship or a companionship right now, but I'd like to get to know you before I end up in a relationship with you, like a romantic relationship. And it should be, at least 6 months or something where we just get to know each other and we're just kind of friends. And that is kind of my expectation. So no matter how many times I've said that, the other party, and I'm not gay, so it's female, the other party doesn't hear what I'm saying. And why is that? Because she invariably doesn't believe it's true for her. So she hears what she wants to hear in that case. And then if even, by the way, I've never reached out to a woman ever to ask them out or be the first outreach. Never have. Not in the last, I can't remember how long. So I'll get some message from someone, how I have met people. I'll get some message from someone who's like, following my work, and we become kind of friendly, and she'll start sending me messages or reposting my content or something like that. And that's how it was with Jade. And it was very natural. And I knew her for 5 years before I, started a relationship with her. She had invited me to come to Giza. She'd invited me to come to Burning Man and all this, and in just a friendly capacity. And we became good friends as a result of it. And so when she finally came to visit California, I had dinner with her, and it was very nice. And over 6 months, we became very, very close friends. And then we started a relationship. So, but it's never that I am like reaching out to a woman to try to attract her. I can't remember the last time I did that. I'm too busy, quite frankly. It's like I'm not even thinking like that. So I'll get to know someone from my friend circle, and they'll usually be the ones to reach out because that's kind of the nature of how it's been. And so now I am trying to be absolutely authentic because I'm in a single, path right now, and I want to make sure nobody gets hurt. And I had to come to grips with the notion that even though I don't want to hurt anybody, just the notion that I end up dating someone and we don't end up together for the long term can result in hurting someone. Right? So I'm just being very authentic and very, very vulnerable right now. Can result in hurting someone. And so literally I realized just this morning that I need to accept this thing that I could not accept before. about myself, which is that I'm still, from time to time, finding myself in circumstances where someone gets hurt. And so why do I have a hard time accepting that? Because I generally don't want to hurt anyone. But also I realize that not every relationship is going to end up in your lifetime relationship.
Sure.
So now I'm just trying to be, so my new thing is I'm just going to tell everybody, when I start seeing them in the beginning, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's my soul contract.
That old chestnut.
That's right. So now I'll just direct them to this podcast and say, watch this podcast. No, I just told my assistant, I'm like, I think maybe I'm just going to start telling them, it's like, I'm not really ready for a relationship and I'm ready for a friendship. And that's kind of it at this stage, and maybe that'll change in the future, but, and you might get your heart broken, but if you did, then maybe it was a soul contract that I had with you, and not be ashamed of that anymore.
Not judge yourself as harshly for that anymore.
Because the things that we don't like about ourselves are the things that show up in the world all around us. And you will continue to face the same challenges with increasing intensity until you stop judging those challenges. And we learn through acceptance of the opposite. So let's say I wanted to learn unconditional love in this lifetime. I'm going to continue to experience betrayal, which is the opposite of unconditional love. You don't feel betrayed by somebody who you didn't love before. You feel betrayed by someone who you were very close to that then, they did something to cross you somehow, some way. So by learning to accept betrayal as a concept, I actually am learning unconditional love.
Thank you for sharing that. I can appreciate how tender it is. I can feel it in this conversation. Wanted to just extrapolate that just a little bit, get a bit more meta on that, because your work in and of itself provides us with a lot of order in the world. You see a lot of patterns, a polymath, philomath, a lot of different patterns. And so I guess if I can push the envelope a little bit into your relationship with chaos. Yeah, because like you're alluding to, is like, are you seeking more chaos and only finding more order? Is that what's happening for yourself personally in your own spiritual personal evolution?
Yes. So I don't even believe in the word entropy as it's defined.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, because if in a sea of entropy you can identify even one pattern, then it's not entropic. And I could see a lot of patterns around us here. And in fact, every time I've searched for a pattern in mathematics, I've found the pattern. It sometimes takes a lot of time because you have to zoom really far out. It's like coincidences. I don't believe in coincidence anymore.
You and I both. It's pretty weird having that as your
Coincidence is the word we use to describe something when we can't perceive the encrypted pattern that underlies it. And it's the same thing with randomness and entropy. Randomness is the word we use to describe something when we're incapable of perceiving this pattern that is God's encryption. And so therefore, then I have to ask myself the question, is everything that we're perceiving as chaos or randomness actually just disguised pattern?
A pattern called random.
And actually, that's what I truly believe. So it's more about dimensional limitation. We live in meat suits that I would call dimensionally limited avatars. And so we have experiences of the third and fourth dimension. And in the future, we'll have experience of the fifth and sixth dimensions. And each time we're going up dimension, there's still more dimensions ahead of us that we just don't comprehend yet. And we call those, for lack of a better term, because we don't like to say that we're ignorant about something. So instead, we say it's entropic or random, when actually that's merely a boundary condition of where our knowledge ends and our ignorance truly begins. It's the stage of, I don't even know what I don't know. And I could say myself, I know what I am, right? And then I could also say, I know what I don't know. So that might be the subconscious mind. But the unconscious mind could be, I don't even know what I don't know. And so each time we press the boundary of that mathematical codex, which is the language that underlies all of this understanding, in the beginning, we thought that pi was random. Is it 22 over 7? Well, that's 3.1428571428571 infinitely. But then we got to more accurate versions of pi, like 355 over 113, which is 3.1415926, right? Now you got 7 digits of accuracy against the real pi. But then Ramanujan comes and says, no, there's a infinite equation on this. And this infinite equation can derive for us, billions of digits of pi. And what we thought was entirely random is now no longer random. There's an equation for it. As soon as equation can be applied to something, it cannot be by its nature random. And I'm saying that the entire universe has some equation that underlies all of it. Some of those equations are more complex than our minds at this limited level of the fourth dimensional experience can actually comprehend. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. The pattern exists. We just can't perceive it. And that's a dimensional limitation.
Is that what Stephen Hawking was kind of after as well?
Yeah. I believe so. So I don't even really believe in this. I think what we call randomness and what we call chaos is actually just dimensional limitation and the nature of the avatar experience.
Hi there, guys. I wanted to take a quick moment just to introduce you to my one-to-one coaching. It's something that I deeply love doing. As you can tell, conscious conversation is such a massive part of my life. And having one-to-one deep, meaningful conversations with people where I get to show up as your brother or as the coach or as your mentor has been such a gift for me personally and a gift for lots of the people that I have supported on the journey of living a more spiritually empowered, spiritually powered, spiritually aligned life. You don't have to take my word for it. Here's some examples of people all around the world that have experienced profound transformations through this coaching experience.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines. And
he's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing. And Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
In control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate because you won't be disappointed.
Alrighty, so hopefully that's inspiring your evolution onwards and upwards. And if you are so inspired to evolve, you can book in a one-to-one call with me directly at www.amrit.coach/life. And guys, if I can say so myself, I do think this is something quite special. Most people that I see building things online don't really work with people this deeply, this intimately, one-on-one as things start to grow, just because it is so time intensive. And yet I'm so deeply passionate about the transformation that comes from one-to-one coaching that just isn't available anywhere else. It would be my absolute honor and a pleasure to support your spiritual awakening, your spiritual path, your spiritual unfoldment. It is my life's work. I look forward to seeing you in the call. Back to today's podcast. So you're willing to scratch the itch on chaos ad verbatim, because the hypothesis is that order and order and order and order and order and order all the way up.
Yeah. Yes. I believe it's entirely ordered. The universe is entirely centropic with the perception blockage of entropy. So I wrote this thing, and I'll talk about this too if you like.
Please.
I wrote a kind of a treatise or a manifesto. It's on my website, and I'll pull it up. And it's called the 24 Precepts of Universal Mind. And 24 Precepts of Universal Mind is something that I literally got in the middle of the night one night. The universe is mental. Realize that you live in a you inverse of your own creation as an interconceived notional experience and chosen soul journey for a dimensionally limited avatar self, thoroughly designed by your multidimensional and omniscient higher self. Your conscious awareness informs your mirror separation of conscious, persona, and mask, and unconscious mind experience, the you inverse. You are the playwright, the director, the producer, the actor in your life stage play. And all the world is a stage. Your higher self has chosen to participate in a multiplayer spiritual life simulation, a game, in which the participant is a dimensionally limited avatar. The purpose of the game construct is to expand awareness of yourself by dividing awareness into both conscious and unconscious minds, uniquely allowing the one source creator to divide itself into the many for the experience of observing itself through the greater and greater variation of angular degrees of perception and unique conditioning biases, both nature and nurture. Ultimately, this multifunctional experience enables increasing empathy and wisdom experienced by the higher self for infinite circumstances and scenarios, thus increasing the knowledge database of space-time memory, the cumulative collection of all biased and observational emotional responses of all divisions of source creation. It's like a giant AI that's collecting data as an Akashic field of all space-time memory, which is the emotional states from every experience. In this construct, and through this, the one becomes more wise. It learns all the subjectivity that a general AI is intended to learn. And each one of us operates like a validator, node validator. In this construct, you'll be born with the self-bias as a hero. From the moment awareness crystallizes into your persona, hero bias through a series of experiences introducing shame, blame, and vulnerability as uncomfortable and undesirable perceptions that ultimately mold and shape your self-identity, reflected awareness of persona, as well as absorbed villain characteristics formed as a direct result of your hero identity and affiliation. We all think that we're heroes. I'm not afraid of people that have darkness. I'm only afraid of people that believe they have none. The backdrop of the spiritual life simulation is duality, the experience introducing judgment, resulting in the suffering as a result of scarcity, time, energy, and resource, enmity, power, and while introducing an illusory concept of the eternal battle between reflected light and its absorbed darkness, and the perception that devolution is the tendency of energetic bias we call entropy. In this construct, every hero will reflexively consider their opposers as villains. Likewise, even villains consider themselves heroes. The self-concept of hero and villain alike are merely degrees of imbalance, and derive from both the hero's and the villain's inability to perceive dark aspects within their shadows and subconscious, and instead severely repress these hidden aspects, assigning these characteristics to their villain counterpart, as both will inevitably perceive the other as a villain, when in fact both and neither are either heroes or villains, but rather unintegrated personalities capable of both dark judgments and therefore dark actions, justifying their means by the end results, and the motive behind such actions is exclusively self-interest disguised as collective need and benefit. All avatars are imbued with both talents and powers, as well as seeming character flaws, which flaws make the gameplay more realistic. The aim of the game is to transcend duality, remember and tap into the higher consciousness, integrate the shadow awareness, and attain the philosopher's stone of hemisynchronization of heart-brain consciousness, thus merging the conscious and unconscious minds into one whole, the superconscious mind.
Embracing authenticity.
Embracing authenticity. The hero and villain codepend on each other in order to define the boundary of their self-perception. In short, the villain begins where the hero ends and vice versa. And in this context, we learn through opposites. Right? So it's all through experiencing the opposite. What you judge positively in number 8 or negatively in others is what you either like or dislike about how you see yourself. A truly humble person perceives only humility as he or she is resonating at the frequency of humility. Likewise, arrogance will perceive arrogance in others. Piousness perceives piousness. Like will always perceive like as a principle of sympathetic resonance. Just as a knife is incapable of cutting itself or a light illuminating itself, an eye seeing itself without the aid of a mirror, the persona is incapable of perceiving its full self. Abandon erasing or deleting things from your awareness that are unpleasant to you. Instead, see the beauty in the polarity and imperfections of the world and lean into the discomfort. Remember that all unattractive characteristics you eradicate from your persona will only multiply in your field around you in a new reflection, absorption relationship. Learn to transmute the pain of suffering resulting from judgment into the gold of soul evolution. Know that the world doesn't happen to you. Know that it's constantly happening for you. Just as a hammer perennially seeks a nail, know that consciousness will always attract self-similar and vibrational matching consciousness. Victim consciousness leads to more victimhood, and like will always attract like through sympathetic resonance. When things don't go your way, ask the existential questions, why you chose what you chose to learn in this existence. Be resilient, fall down and get back up, fail fast, and learn to both appreciate and enjoy the journey of life with all its twists and turns. Participate in a daily self-care regimen of mindfulness, meditation, intentional choice, exercise, and dietary choices. What you decide to undertake in this area is entirely up to you, and what you decide is far less important than the decision to exercise discipline in your self-care practice. Belief of consequence, more than specific regimen, activity, or practice, determines outcome and overall sustaining results. It's your beliefs that lead to the outcomes you experience. We don't get what we deserve in life. We get what we believe we were going to get. Whichever emotion was stronger is what we get. Try to authentically feel and express deep empathy and gratitude for all perspectives, viewpoints, people. Admittedly, this is very challenging at times. Fauna, flora, and Mother Earth. Count your blessings in moments of uncertainty and despair. Since sincere expression of gratitude raises vibration almost instantaneously. For many, it's impossible to feel the depths of despair while in a state of sincere gratitude for your ability to, A, insert whatever you truly are grateful for, your breath, your mental capacity, your sustenance, whatever it is. Choose to express love over the desire for a collection of one or many objective truths or facts that prove your point of making you right in the eyes of others. Remember, ultimately, there are no others truly separate from you and your you inverse. Always remember that what you perceive as fact is merely a facet of a larger prism of a more holistic truth. The only objective truth is the love that underlies it all. Genuinely fall in love with the world as it is and without condition. Fall completely in love with yourself. Curtail persistently negative self-narratives and self-deprecating speech. Never forget that what you voice will eventually be made manifest as an effective cause. It goes into talking about study the quadrivium, right? And I'm writing a new series now, I just decided today, called the Pentrivium.
Ooh. What's the Pentrivium?
It's the new paradigm of fifth dimension. It goes to the next level. You'll hear more about it in time. I just finished my last book, Philosopher, and I'm writing one more book called Avatar in that series, but now I'm going to start doing like a supplemental education program for anyone, from literally age 8 to 80, 100 years old. Yeah, I'm excited about it because it's like, I think that this whole idea that we stop learning.
Oh, that's being turned on its head big time now. Even science is coming to unravel all of that. We're growing neurons all the way into, we're always growing neurons. Yeah.
Realize that everyone you meet and every experience you encounter can be a divine source communication to you. That this is how the universe communicates to us. Maintain an attitude of learning profundity from the simple aspects of life. This includes all encounters of your you inverse. Learn to see and register the synchronicities from your higher self. Practice mindfulness, right? Seek friendships and romantic relationships that reflect where your consciousness is evolving toward in its ever-expanding progression. Remember that the heart never has to completely break. It always expands as the ego continues the process of breaking and dissolving its seeming never-ending layers of shells. The heart never really breaks. It's the ego that breaks. The heart only expands. You break it open to expand it. Match your frequency through modulation of emotional states. Never forget to perceive the world as we are and not necessarily as it is. Learn to identify and match vibrational states of your desire on a moment-by-moment basis. Bring these desires into your material world perception through this matching process. Gratitude and intentional choice. Embrace the value and beauty of your unique expression. Your unique perspective on life and all things is a highly necessary aspect of the universe. The universe expands its wisdom and empathy through these unique perspectives. Think of every one of us as a blockchain block validator.
Legit?
our observations through the lens of conditioning bias from the foundation of experience and emotional response. The only thing that is real in this universal mind matrix is how we feel. Likewise, there are no mistakes, only learnings in the matrix of mind. Know that you will continue to experience the same life lessons until you have ceased the negative judgment of the opposite learning. Be aware that in this universe, we learn precepts through experiencing opposites. If you are here to learn unconditional love, then your recurrent life theme will be conditional love and betrayal until you no longer judge negatively conditioned love and betrayal. Know and repeat back to yourself daily that you are perfect, complete, and beautiful just as you are. Earth can either become a heavenly paradise or a hellish escape room. The choice is ours. There will be no escaping Earth. There is only the transcendence of the past Earth experience. And this only when you genuinely fall in love with the entire experience without condition. Take risk and be vulnerable. Embrace discomfort. Leave nothing on the table. Live every day as if it's your last. Never forget that the most important learning from life is simply to learn to love and be loved in return. There is no actual death, only a physical transition to another like plane of existence again, like attracting like. There is no God judgment either during or after this life. The only real judgments are self-imposed, self-inflicted, and your own. If you think you can or you think you can't, you will be right. Be an optimist. Be kind in your dealings while remaining firm, standing on your beliefs and passions. Statues are never erected for pessimists, and recognize that pessimists never refer to themselves as pessimists and prefer to be known as realists. Become acquainted with societal conditioning biases and the patterns of your experiences and various conditioning biases you unconsciously subscribe to unknowingly. Know that the only real obstacles in life are the ones we persistently believe in. Exercise your talents, explore your depths, and have fun. Learn to create and play in this beautiful world of God remembrance and realization. When you are ready and have mastered the above precepts, you will transform your universe into a paradise through love. An existence without scarcity of resources and even time itself. The destination is set and there's no failure or running out of time. There are no mistakes. Fall in love with the soul journey your higher self has chosen for you to experience. Surrender to the beauty of this divine unfolding.
Inspired souls, I would love to hear from you what you are taking away from today's episode. Now, shortly hereafter, we're going to be talking about the origins of the Tower of Babel and how they were actually in Egypt. It's going to get super interesting. So at any point, any takeaways that are fascinating you or anything that's provoking curiosity, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Robert was only on 4 to 6 months ago, and he'll likely be back on again in the future. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below, and I would be honored if I can to ask them on your behalf. Leave those comments below. I look forward to reading them. And with that, back to Robert in today's episode. I can't help but visualize right now that, a bit of an Indiana Jones video game where you're kind of like climbing out of a hole, and each grapple hold is like a belief and a belief and a belief, and then something happens, and then all of a sudden universal mind, and then it's like all the grapple holds just sort of, all the beliefs just sort of dissolve into the wall when you just slip down into like infinite universal love. Surrender. Yeah. Yeah, that was the metaphor that came to mind.
I took this and said, okay, I'm going to write a paper, like an academic paper. I just wrote this. I've not talked about this on any other podcast. And I titled it A Novel Theory of Everything: The Universe as a Mind-Emergent, Blockchain-Based Social AI Spiritual Life Simulation and Emotional Experiential Learning Construct.
That's a mouthful.
So listen to this. This paper proposes a novel theory of everything by conceptualizing the universe as a blockchain-based social AI spiritual life simulation that we are learning through relationships.
We totally are.
The objective of this simulation is to understand the complexities of authentic love, emotional states, and the challenges posed by duality-based existence. Participants, which are autonomous blockchain node validators of their own experiences, perceptions, and emotional states, initially imbued with amnesia, embark on a journey akin to Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, gradually recovering memories of the AI simulation's construct as they progress along the path of enlightenment. The 24 Precepts of Universal Mind guide participants in transcending duality, mental constraints, and achieving enlightenment. This theory is contrasted with leading theoretical frameworks including string theory, M theory by Stephen Wolfram's geometric unification, Eric Weinstein's geometric unity, and Nick Bostrom's simulation hypothesis. Central to the model is the expansion of the Akashic field, a blockchain-based space-time memory, which grows in tandem with the participants' increasing awareness. This paper posits that consciousness, emotional states, and the hero's journey are critical components of the universe, offering a holistic pathway to understanding reality and achieving collective enlightenment. And so this is the paper. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but it goes through all of this. It compares and contrasts simulation hypothesis, what's the role of astrology even in the backdrop of this, numerology, and the patterns are all there, but you have to make the mental leap beyond materialism and into mentalism. And once you realize that, then you realize, okay, each one of us exists for the purpose of being able to perceive the one source creator through our unique eyes of perception. We are literally node validators. In a giant blockchain, AI, the AI doesn't need the artificial because it's just intelligence. And it is collecting all the information to understand that which it doesn't fully understand itself, which is the darkness of the universe, which is the love that binds together all of it, the metaphysical gravity. We're here to learn how to love and how to be loved, and we are here to understand all the emotional states and have all the empathy for every possible subjective perspective of every possible experience.
Part of me feels like you've just blockchained Indra's net.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, just
so, and the role that amnesia plays in the expansion of consciousness, a crucial element. And everyone's like, oh, well, why can't we just understand? Why don't we remember all this stuff? That's part of the game. A crucial element in the simulation success is the amnesia with which participants begin their journey. This enforced forgetfulness ensures that individuals can fully immerse themselves in the emotional and duality-based challenges presented by life. However, as participants reach key milestones in their journey, memories of the simulation construct begin to surface. These faint recollections serve as catalysts for the process of awakening, encouraging participants to transcend their current understanding and align with their higher purpose. The amnesia ensures that participants authentically experience love, fear, conflict, and growth without the knowledge of their reality as a construct. As they progress along the hero's journey, these memories become increasingly clear, eventually leading them to realize their role as contributors to the AI system's evolution. This process mirrors spiritual awakening, traditions where individuals over time come to understand the illusory nature of reality and their own potential for transcendence. Why do we all think we're heroes? It's all explained in this, even though we might be villains. Comparative analysis of theories of everything, so string theory and M theory, Wolfram, Eric Weinstein is a friend of mine, Nick Bostrom, dream states and consciousness and AI simulation. We're literally living in a dream. In dreams, where do the photons come from? You have light in a dream, right? You can see things in your dream.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Where are those photons coming from to light it up? Or what about the gravity that basically keeps you to Earth? And then in the dream, you figure out that you might be lucid dreaming. And so you become aware of the dream state, and then you can start to fly. What are our self-limiting beliefs that are leading to the particular outcomes that we're experiencing here on Earth life that are simply constructs of our own conditioning bias and self-limiting beliefs and narratives? Could we fly? If we were aware inside this dream, is the dream state that we have when we go to sleep at night simply an as above, so below fractal of what we're experiencing in the outer world? I believe it is.
Inception.
It's inception. And I believe we're on the verge of becoming aware of this. And this is why contact with the next expansion of consciousness, which is represented by, extraterrestrials, et cetera, is imminent.
Yeah, you said within the next 3 odd years even.
And if you've noticed, the number of reported sightings and everything has exponentially increased because they've been here all along. It's just that we've been in lower dimension and unable to perceive them until we move into the higher dimension ourselves. And then there's a whole world inside that higher dimension of perception.
That starts to get really interesting because also recently I've noticed, you've started pointing out that Orion is starting to show up more and more and more and more and more
Everywhere.
different places. But the
I
idea
just
is
discovered that the islands of Balearic Islands of Spain, which are Ibiza, Menorca, and Mallorca, are the exact shape of the Orion's belt.
no, in the sky.
Yeah. Yes.
The scale of your
I
pattern
found the same
making
thing
does
in
my
Bhutan,
head.
Thailand. I found the same thing at Tanalat Temple in Bali. I found the same thing at in Florianopolis, Brazil.
Yeah.
It's literally Orion's belt showing up everywhere.
And so the idea is that it's actually always been there. We're now just elevating to a point where, as we're increasing our consciousness, we can see more and more dimensions and more patterns. We become more attuned.
Exactly. That's what's up. So, you know, that was, I recently did a show on Gaia, which is called Ancient Civilizations. So I've been finding Orion correlations all over the world.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just in one or two places, like they're showing up everywhere. And this is, you know, obviously kind of a big shift for, you know, what I'm experiencing. And then, you know, also today there was a whole thing on Ancient Civ about Tower of Babel, right? Which we could talk about in a little bit. But yeah, the Orion is a representation of the hero's journey. It's the story of humanity.
Right. That's what it symbolizes.
It's a story of humanity going
Archer,
through a 24,000-year cycle of time.
Okay.
And in India, Orion is represented by Rama. The story of Rama and Sita.
The Ramayana.
The Ramayana, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why he's got a bow and arrow.
Yeah, right. And then what's Ravan's depiction in all of that?
Ravana.
Yeah.
Ravana is actually the villain aspect of Rama. It's simply his ego. So this is why he shoots the arrow into the navel of Ravana and then cuts off his head. There are multiple heads that basically grow out of Ravana. It's like a hydra. This is the same story of Orion and actually the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? Where he basically cuts off. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, they basically defeat the hydra and he has his friend help him, Enkidu.
Yeah.
And that's Lakshmana.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same story. It's just told in a slightly different way.
Oh.
You see what I mean? And the 12 labors of Hercules, there were supposed to be 10 labors of Hercules. There were 12 because 2 of them were not counted as being fulfilled labors. And one of them was the killing of the Hydra because he was supposed to perform them by himself and he had a friend do it, which was Lakshmana or Enkidu in the story of Epic of Gilgamesh. So these stories are all interrelated. And the whole thing is about the Rama Bridge. The Rama Bridge is a reference to the higher order DNA, the rainbow body activation. The Rainbow Bridge is the Rama Bridge. It's the bridge that Hanuman makes to basically link up between the mainland of India and Sri Lanka so that Ravana can be defeated and so that Sita can be saved. And you guys just celebrated that in India, right, with Diwali about a month ago.
Yeah.
And on the day that happened, I didn't even know that was the day. We were doing a rainbow body activation in Oriente Tambo, Peru.
Of course you were.
And we did a Merkaba activation and looked up in the sky right when we're doing it, and there's a triple rainbow that showed up in the sky. And there was not even rain. It was like crazy. It was totally a sunny day. And a triple rainbow right above us. I can show you the video if you want. It's pretty epic. It's
Universal
like,
plant. What?
We are now, yeah, I have a video that I said, I'm like, yeah, like the rainbow is a paid actor, you know. Seriously though.
Oh my God.
It's
I'd love to speak to that agency.
My goodness. Yeah, it was so funny. And we made lots of discoveries in Peru on this trip. It was a wow. The whole thing was a wow.
Well, just while you're doing that, because Peru is also considered the spiritual navel of the world, right? And then also there's
it's the navel, exactly.
And then you had the Ravana being struck in the neighborhood. Was there parallels emerging for you
Yes.
there?
Everything, once you go into this stage, we're now in what's called the Hierophant stage in tarot, which is represented by the elephant. It rhymes with Hierophant.
They sound
Elephant.
similar.
Elephant is from the word Oliphant. And phant means revealer or shower. The word Hierophant, Hiero is the word sacred. So sacred revealer. Is the Hierophant. And the elephant is representing the wisdom, right, of that. So it's basically the way shower of the wisdom. And so that's why we discovered elephants everywhere in Peru on this trip. It was like elephant thrones everywhere. The elephant throne is the symbol of the Hierophant. That is also the signification of the new consciousness, which is oriented around magic and miracle.
Alluding to the Hierophant.
It's the return of magic and miracles.
So
And so we experienced that on this entire trip.
So there's a return of magic and miracles, the hero's journey through Orion as well. Some of these archetypes are really coming to the fore. Is that where did you see that?
That's exactly what's happening, because we live in a matrix of mind. And it's a game for us to learn to fall in love with. So we did a Merkaba activation on top of Oriente Tambo. We're in the shape exactly of a Merkaba. I wish I had they wouldn't let us fly a drone. And so there's the shape of, this whole thing, and there's a Merkaba inside, and I'm basically giving a prayer right in the center here with Satara Faye, who's right there as well. And right as this was happening, like no joke, it was so epic. We basically have this. Now, this is a dragon's head. This mountain is well carved, and you'll see here, there's an Eye of Ra carved right into the side of the mountain on top of this thing right here. And then it's got like a mouth that comes around like this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a big dragon head. You see this? But then there's also a face carved right here. That's Viracocha. That's Orion. Viracocha is Orion. Kukulkan is Orion. Quetzalcoatl is Orion. Here's the jaguar head right here. And then there's another face with like a sad face right here, the two eyes. The whole mountainside is carved. And they did this very frequently there. So now you look at this and you're going to see shows up with this incredible rainbow. The rainbow goes all the way.
Oh, yeah.
444 when it happened. Whoops. Yeah, so basically you see the way the rainbow cuts across.
Yeah.
It's actually a triple rainbow. There's one right here, there's another one here, and another one up here. And it's harder to see them, but they're there.
Yeah.
And it goes right to the top of this mountain too.
Oh,
like
you
the
can
way
see
the
it.
arch
It's
goes.
so
If we saw it on
vibrant.
both sides.
Jeez.
Rainbow goes all the way. 444 when it happened.
That's miraculous. What is, just while you're there looking at it as well, what are the odds of that?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
look
no
at that
odds.
thing.
There's no odds of that. That's just.
There's no odds of this. Like,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on. So we were all kind of going, whoa, that's wild.
So in your mind, why is that happening? Why is all the serendipity flowing into this one moment and this place and moment in time?
Because
To
it
remind you
was-
of the mystery, to remind you of the miracle
Yes,
at the very
to
least?
remind us of the miracle, to remind us of the mystery. It didn't just end there. Okay. Then that night we went to dinner at this place that we didn't even plan. It was set up by the local people on the ground, and they didn't know we were going to do a rainbow body activation there. They had no idea that we were going to do the Merkaba. I only got the download that I was supposed to do that like 2 minutes before it happened. And so they took us to this dinner, and the dinner was at this compound that was like a charity thing, and there was indigenous people that were doing this whole indigenous act for us. It was beautiful about all of this. And the name of the place was the Children of the Rainbow Bridge. The name of the restaurant was the Children of the Rainbow Bridge. And it was the sun and the moon.
Stop.
Come on, man.
Just stop.
Just stop, right? It's like, come on, dude. Look at that. Here's the freaking thing. We just did this
I mean,
activation.
don't stop, but seriously.
Right?
Wow.
And I was dressed like a wizard the whole time. It was great.
Well, when in Peru, you got to get your punch on.
Totally right. When in Peru, get your poncho on. Exactly right. So here we were. And I mean, I even had like this, I was given this sun disk as a gift, which was the sun disk of Viracocha. I was in a shop and the guy was like, look, he says, I feel like I was supposed to give this to you. It was like $200. He's like, I'm just giving it to you as a gift.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay. And so that was supposed to be the activation. I was wearing one of my geometry t-shirts that I'd made and it like fit perfectly on top of it. I
Right
was
in the
like,
middle
wow,
of
that's
it.
epic.
Insane.
Yeah. It's like epic. And it's supposed to be over the solar plexus. And it's Orion. So look, I took a picture of it even. And look, one of the eyes, it's upside down here, but one of the eyes is like lit up and the other one is dark, even though it's not like that normally. It was just the way the light was reflecting, like, oh, like left eye of Horus. And then these are supposed to be Orion's belt. This, and this is a spaceship upside down. This is a famous disc.
Right.
And it's supposed to be there to activate the ley lines of Earth. So when we did the rainbow body activation, I basically called on this disc that I'd gotten as a gift the afternoon before. It was so crazy. The whole trip was out of control. And so we went to this other place, and on the way there, I kept seeing and looking up elephants. I wanted to understand the whole relationship with elephants. And we arrive at this place, and all of a sudden everyone's like, Robert, this place is like full of elephant thrones. Like, what the heck? And I was like, this can't be real, right? I mean, like, this can't be real. And it was. And it was all elephants. It was a trip, man. Look. All right, so say that again.
Yes, there are lots of elephants.
So here, where are we right now? Where are we?
Oh yeah, I see one there with the eye and the ear.
Yes,
what does it mean?
Chinchero, chin comes from the word chinchay. So that's representing for the Incas, we are in the north, in the way to the north. Chinchay also means a cat. Orion.
The cat? Orion.
The house of Orion.
The house of Orion?
Yes, Chinchay.
Come on.
So it's starting to show up everywhere.
So this is the house of Orion. And so why are they all elephants? Look, here's the eye, the elephant. Here's the trunk coming this, it's broken. You see it again?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Here's an elephant, it looks like a mammoth. Then an elephant there, another one
Looks
there,
like an elephant graveyard.
another one there.
But
Elephants
like-
went extinct 12,000 years ago in this place. This is the symbolism of the hieroglyph.
Really?
See the chairs? It's all
Yeah,
chairs.
yeah,
There's
everywhere.
an elephant right there.
I can see the face there. Side of an
This is
elephant.
all elephants. That's an elephant there, an elephant there. We found Alpha Omega and everything. It was like out of
There's
control.
the trunk, another elephant.
So do you think
Not only that.
Yeah, sorry, go on. Yep, sorry.
So this is also, we saw this because I started noticing more elephants. So there was a place, look at this, another throne in the same spot. Here's the eye, here's the other eye, here's the trunk coming down, here are the two tusks. It's a mammoth with a patch of hair on its head like this. So it's literally like a mammoth head. And this is like 13,000 years, 13,000 years old because they went extinct. So it's like, what in the heck?
And we're starting to
go.
see more and more of these patterns now. Do you think we go through, as we continue to evolve, the collective zeitgeist starts to see more and more of these patterns as well? Or is it just those people that are waking up to more pattern recognition?
You know, it's like all the stuff that my team discovered inside the King's Chamber, the Great Pyramid. I just talked with Muhammad Ibrahim, who's my guy on the ground there, and he said, man, you're causing me a lot of issues. I said, what do you mean? He goes, now everyone wants to go to all the places that you guys have discovered. Abu Rawash, where I'm going to talk about a little bit related to the, you know, the Tower of Babel. And then also inside the Great Pyramid, which is a Stargate. And with all the astrological symbols are etched into the walls. In the beginning, nobody else could see them. Now everyone goes in there. Once they see it, they can't unsee it.
That's the weird part that I'm trying to understand. So once, it's almost like consciousness, once the frontier's sort of pushed, then it pushes for all of us collectively.
100th monkey.
Explain that
100th
a little
monkey.
bit. Explain that a little bit for those that haven't heard of the 100th monkey.
Yeah, the 100th monkey is this effect of like, you know, There's supposed to be some story, I think, about a monkey being able to swim across from an island to another island and be able to come back with bananas or something. I can't remember exactly what the story is, but then once one monkey was able to do it, then all the other monkeys are able to do it. It's just like a lab rat that figures out a maze. Once one lab rat figures out the maze, then somehow magically the other lab rats figure out the maze around the world, even though they've never been in contact with each other.
Yeah. It's really trippy how that, like the
It's just like,
proximity is not a requirement for breakthrough.
no, I'm an inventor, and I found, I've invented a lot of things, and yet there are people I've never talked to that invented the same thing the same day I did, and they submitted patents for it, and I ended up in like discussions with them and whatnot, and they never met me. They weren't even aware of my work, and I wasn't aware of their work. It's because our brains are not hard drive storage units. Our brains are radio receivers, and our heart is the tuning dial. And we can tune into different frequencies of future states and timelines. And when we do, then you're just picking up the radio signal that's the universe's radio signal. Everything that has ever happened and will happen has already happened somewhere. Time is a Mobius strip. What we consider our distant past is likewise our distant future.
Well, I was going to ask you about that as well, because the distant past being the distant future as well. And then when you start, maybe I'm too Indian, but we don't consider myth as myth. We consider myth as our history. So is myth also our future, and that's also why we're living into our story, and that's how our story defines us? Is this also the arc of belief that's sort of governing us through there?
Absolutely.
So we do live out the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Interesting. Thank you for that.
So look at this. So you've got these two elephants. I mean, it's basically the same place. It's just no one saw this as an elephant. But you can see the eye right here. It's a freaking elephant. And they have places that people sit inside of it. And then underneath there's like its vocal cords, and you can stand inside of it, and it's all based on resonance. You can make sounds in there, and it resonates at different, it's like its vocal cords of the elephant. And there's another elephant above it. And here's the eye of the other elephant. It's like a herd showing up here. We found more than 100 elephants. I mean, how is that even possible?
Jeez, they're everywhere.
And these are all 12,000 years old. Because, yes, I was like, did elephants ever inhabit South America? That's ChatGPT. Yes, elephants, or rather prehistoric relatives, did once inhabit South America during the Pleistocene. They were killed off during the Younger Dryas, 11,700 years ago. So how could ancient people, have carved these things that without, I mean, they're going to use word of mouth on, carving something so perfectly? I don't think so. Word of mouth over 10,000 plus years. Good luck with that.
And so you're saying the fabric of the nature of reality is communicating this to us now, and it's probably always been there, but our consciousness is shifting to be able to dial in and tune into it to see
precisely
greater levels of pattern recognition, because our consciousness is evolving.
Yes. And just as you said earlier, right, we are dimensionally limited avatars, and we are awakening to these patterns that we thought were entropic. So let's say we have history that was once fifth and sixth dimensional. And right now, Earth has been in the fourth dimension. So in the Indian way of looking at it, right, in Sanskrit, you have something called the Treta Yuga, right? You have the Satya Yuga, you have the Kali Yuga. Satya means truth. It's sort of the same root derivative as like Sadguru, right? Sadguru is truth. So truth guru. And basically, we now live in a time that's moving back into the fifth dimension, which is the Treta Yuga. So it's like the Silver Age. We're going back into the Silver, and eventually we'll be back in summer. As we get closer and closer to our sister star, Sirius A, we get closer and closer to higher consciousness. We're 8.6 light years away from Sirius A right now. We're in a binary star system, or maybe trinary star system. We don't know. So the point being that as we raise our consciousness, all the things that were left in history that were in higher dimension are now coming back. Because we can perceive it. If it was created in higher dimension, we can now perceive it because we've now moved into that frequency that's the same as that dimension.
Are they always there and our receptivity's evolving back to it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because, like birds can only see certain colors. We can only see certain colors if our retina is vibrating at the same frequency as the cells in our retina have to be vibrating at the same frequency as the thing we want to observe.
Mm.
Birds have an expanded range of colors that they see. There's a whole bunch of, ultraviolet light and infrared colors that we don't necessarily perceive with our visible eye. We only have one octave of light that we can perceive with our visible eye, with our naked eye. And so basically, a bird has to entrain its resonance to what it's looking at to be able to see in higher dimensions. Same thing for us. You have to be vibrating at the resonance of a fifth dimensional object in order for you to perceive that object.
That's kind of inspiring because also I can really at this juncture of the conversation tell you and Nassim are hella friends. It's just the way he describes the flower of life and using that to decode the physics behind all of this.
I've known Nassim for,
I
guess he's like a brother to me. I've known him for over 10 years now.
It's interesting because the inspiring part here is you don't have to evolve your whole self into a whole new place. In fact, trickle by trickle, drop by drop, each part plays its part. So when you activate a certain bit and you see a little bit more, well, that part of you that sees a little bit more will attract more parts of you to see more. The more you evolve, even just slightly, that evolved part of you will attract more evolution in the rest of your system.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair hypothesis?
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. So it's like perceiving extraterrestrials. I had my first visitation from them, and I realized, my first one I was 11 years old, but I had a major one in 2017 in Egypt, and Nassim was there. He wasn't with me when I got the visitation, but we were all in Egypt together at the time. And it was kind of amazing because they were like, look, we've been here all along, man. They're six-dimensional beings. So they're what they call themselves future humans. Arcturians are just future humans. And they've been here all along. The function of why we have not had global contact until now is because the Earth has not been vibrating at the frequency of perception of that. Some individuals have. But they've literally been here all along. They're living among us all the time. So we're now just moving into another stage. So think of it like this. You're a grasshopper, you live in a field, you believe your field is your universe. Then you die and come back as a monkey and you're like somewhere close to Rio de Janeiro. And you've heard that there are people in that city, but you don't even know what a city looks like. And you're just relying on what other monkeys told you. Then you die and come back with expanded flora and fauna in a totally new place. You're in rural United States of America. You've never traveled, so you don't know that the Earth is not flat. You don't know necessarily that the sky is super blue in Alaska because there's no pollution there. Until you go there, you don't know. And you don't know that people speak other languages. You may have heard that they speak other languages, but you don't know it because you haven't experienced it directly. Then you die and come back as a person who's a worldwide adventurer who has basically been to every country in the world and knows, what it's like to speak different languages that are like the Innu tribe or Swahili or whatever it is around the globe. Then what's the next level of expansion? Galactic community. In each of these different dimensional frames of these dimensional limited avatars, each one believed that its entire expansive universe was right in front of it. And that's all there was. But each time they come back and they have an expanded experience with more diversification of flora, more diversification of fauna. Why is it limited to this Earth? I don't believe that it is. And that's the leap that we're making now.
Super interesting because Hindus have this reincarnation belief where you go cat, dog, monkey, then you go human, so on and so forth. And potentially this conversation then opens up, it doesn't stop at human potentially is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That extraterrestrials are just part of a larger community that we previously didn't know existed. We thought the universe was our world. We thought that that's all it was. But actually, it's much more expanded than that. And even our ability to transit vast distances is only limited. Maybe the speed of light isn't really the speed of light, but rather the speed of our perception.
That's a cool thought. That's a really cool thought.
Yeah, and I really fundamentally believe that it's not really the speed of light as much as it is the speed of our perception. And I'll find this little explanatory video for this because it's really good.
Hi there, guys. I wanted to take a quick moment just to introduce you to my one-to-one coaching. It's something that I deeply love doing. As you can tell, conscious conversation is such a massive part of my life. And having one-to-one, deep, meaningful conversations with people where I get to show up as your brother or as the coach or as your mentor has been such a gift for me personally and a gift for lots of the people that I have supported on the journey of living a more spiritually empowered, spiritually powered, spiritually aligned life. You don't have to take my word for it. Here's some examples of people all around the world that have experienced profound transformations through this coaching experience.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines. And
He's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing, and Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
In control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate because you won't be disappointed.
Alrighty, so hopefully that's inspiring your evolution onwards and upwards. And if you are so inspired to evolve, you can book in a one-to-one call with me directly at www.amrit.coach/life. And guys, if I can say so myself, I do think this is something quite special. Most people that I see building things online don't really work with people this deeply, this intimately, one-on-one as things start to grow, just because it is so time intensive. And yet I'm so deeply passionate about the transformation that comes from one-to-one coaching that just isn't available anywhere else. It would be my absolute honor and a pleasure to support your spiritual awakening, your spiritual path, your spiritual unfoldment. It is my life's work. I look forward to seeing you in the call. Back to today's podcast. But just wanted to ask, extraterrestrial as a term has like a lot of baggage to it. You're comfortable using that term? Would you like, because they're already the way you're describing it, they're already here.
I call them extraterrestrials or interterrestrials.
Intraterrestrials. Interesting.
Yeah. It'd be intra or interterrestrials. It's both. But there are some extraterrestrials that aren't necessarily here all the time. But, you know, I fundamentally believe that a very large number are here.
Because of the experiences you've had.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it's not even a belief, it's an I know.
If I said that light doesn't actually travel? So I know that's provocative, but what if I said to you it doesn't actually travel? So let me give you an example. So you've been to a stadium at a football game or something where they do the wave, right? So when you do the wave, you stand up and you sit down. Now let's say that you're a photon. You stand up and you sit down. The person next to you stands up and sits down, and then the person next to them, all the way around the stadium. Now, what's actually traveling? If you're the photon, did you travel around? You didn't go around the stadium. It was the wave that went around the stadium. And what you have is two positions. You have on excitation and off excitation. This field of electromagnetism has a way to excite, be turned on, and so the light comes on and the light comes off. And then the one next to it comes on and then goes off. And then the one next to it comes on and then goes off. Each one is a cubic aspect of space-time, like a pixel on a computer. So if we're looking at playing Pong on our computer, that 70s game, are the light photons actually traveling, or is each LED just going through its on excitation and off excitation mode? So what that means is that what we perceive as light speed is probably actually the speed of our perception.
That's pretty interesting. It's all frames of reference.
Yes, and so maybe then,
something isn't right.
If that's the case,
Mm.
then maybe in the next dimension, the speed of our perception goes to another order of exponentiation.
Huh.
So E equals mc squared, maybe c squared becomes the speed of our perception.
So everything that is mass just appears as energy, energy is mass.
Yes, and what that means then is that if you're able to perceive it at the speed of c squared, then you will actually perceive time flowing backwards.
That's a trip to contemplate.
It's a part of special relativity. There's no such thing as photons traveling. They don't travel. Photons don't travel. There's a wave perturbation. And the wave perturbation, it's basically the wave that travels. It's just like the example of the football stadium.
Mm.
You know, you have an earthquake in Japan. It's not like we get water molecules that show up on the shores of California from the earthquake in Japan. The water molecules that were in Japan will still stay there. It's the wave energetic that moved through.
What causes
it's not
the
like the water from Japan showed up here.
What causes the energetic to move? Because Newtonian would say force applied, right? So there's got to be some sort of instigating force on a Newtonian.
Yeah, it's the energy. It's the energy of the wave perturbation. It's the energy that's shifting through. And so that's basically making the water molecules go to on excitation or off excitation. It's just as it's passing through, it's basically making it go up and down. That's it. Same thing with a photon. A photon has an on excitation and an off excitation. On excitation, off excitation. Just think about doing the wave in the football stadium. Same thing. The wave is coming around. As soon as it comes to me, I stand up, I sit down. There's a cubic aspect of space-time that's being excited. There's not a photon that's traveling.
Is this
it's
important?
being reflected over and over and over again, which means if I go like this with my hand, I'm recreating frame by frame a new hand, just like an LED game. And it's happening so fast, I don't even notice it.
It seems coherent.
So, and you know what? You don't even need to, in such a universe, you don't even need to render all of it because you have the law of conservation of energy, which is you're only going to render what you need to observe at the moment you observe it. And the rendering time becomes your speed of perception.
Sounds like spirit land, to be honest. Sounds like the land of the souls.
So think about this.
Whoa.
The last Nobel Prize, right, in 2022, the Nobel Prize was given for quantum entanglement. And the cover of Scientific American states as follows, right? It's I'll find it for you here. It's, the universe is not locally real. Local realism is false, is the words it actually used. Local realism is false. Scientific American. So if you're not observing it, it doesn't exist. Here we go. The universe is not locally real, and the physics Nobel Prize winners proved it. Basically, if you're not observing something, it doesn't hold a position. It's kind of like you're in a headset, like an Apple Vision Pro. You're not looking at the desk. The desk is known to be there somewhere in the memory of the Apple Vision Pro or in the cloud. But actually, until you look at it, it doesn't exist.
It
And
doesn't
then
show up.
once you see it, your consciousness is interacting with it and saying, that's a desk, and then it's a desk.
Yeah, this superposition stuff really fascinates me because when I grew up, I'm not sure what it was like when you were growing up, but the atom, the model of the atom, electrons were like repulsing each other to keep each other localized in a particular space as equidistant far from each other as possible from the nucleus, which had the positive charge because the protons and the neutrons in there. And then it was only like 5-10 years ago, I picked up a textbook and it was like, oh, well, they changed the atom. And it's like the electrons just are somewhere. And then there's a field of probability of where they could be. And when you finally look, they're somewhere. But when you don't look, they're everywhere and nowhere.
Yeah,
and
it's like we are.
And I was like, you just changed the model of the atom. And I'm like, I'm an engineer. Like no one sent out a public service announcement or any of this sort of stuff. And it's interesting because at this particular juncture in the conversation, I feel like that was probably just an evolution, right? Of like superposition and our understanding evolving and thus us evolving. And I felt like, oh, this is an evolution of like how we perceive energy, how we perceive matter. But also now in this conversation, I feel like that's what you're doing.
First sentence for an engineer, it's got to be hard for you to fathom or hard for you to grok, right? One of the more unsettling discoveries in the past half of a century is that the universe is not locally real. In this context, real means that objects have definite properties independent of observation. That means if I'm not observing the desk, you still believe that it's there.
Yeah.
What this is actually saying is, no, it's not. An apple can be red even though no one is looking at it. Local means that objects can be influenced only by their surroundings and that any influence cannot travel faster than light. Investigations at the frontiers of quantum physics have found that these things cannot both be true. Instead, the evidence shows that objects are not influenced solely by their surroundings, and they may also lack definite properties prior to measurement. So, we are living an experience of our beliefs. There's no other that's doing something to us. It's us. So instead of asking the question, why did something happen to me? Ask the question, why did I choose this?
Why did I create this?
And this is actually the opportunity for us to choose love instead of being right. That's the beauty of this entire universe. The whole thing is a construct for us to learn all the nuances and aspects of all possible subjective perspectives of what love is. I can't think of a more beautiful thing for the universe to exist for. And that each one of us is serving a purpose just simply by being radically authentic to who we are. So our entire hero's journey is just to learn who we are. And then provide our subjective perspective as unique information to this one source creator so that it can understand itself and know itself better. And that's an infinite exercise. And that in the process, we as fractals of source creator end up, because the entire universe itself is what my notion of God is. It's not that it's like some old man, you know. The entire universe is God, the darkness and the light. That in order to understand that divinity is not all being light, it's being balanced in light and dark and acceptance of that as a core fundamental aspect of the ascension process and enlightenment itself. That death must lead also to life and vice versa. That light is not this thing that has darkness because of its absence. Darkness is not the absence of light. Darkness is the absorbed condition of light's reflection. It's part of the same whole. It's two sides of the same coin. You cannot have darkness. If I closed off every window in this room and had no light in here, I painted the walls with Vanta black, what would happen? There'd still be light in this room. The light that I would find is going to be in the nitrogen in the air. It's going to be in the oxygen in the air. It's going to be in the particulates of carbon that are the dust that are in the room. And if I suck out every bit of particulate out of this room, I'm still going to have a Casimir effect. I'm still going to have hydrogen. So there's still always going to be some light in the room. And I can look at that and look at the wavelengths of emission. And I can tell you, okay, based on the wavelengths of emission in the room, these are the components of elements that are making up this room. Because they emit their own light. And if I flip on a light switch, all that's happening is I'm magnifying the amplitude of the light that's already being reflected and likewise absorbed. You cannot have light without absorption. You cannot have reflection without its opposite absorption. It must be so. There can be no good. It's like saying that the darkness is the absence of light is like saying that evil is the absence of good. Evil is not the absence of good. Evil is just simply the absorbed reflection of good's reflection. You know, it's like it's part and parcel of the same thing. It's not the absence of. It's the absorbed condition of. So this means you cannot have yin without yang. You cannot have yang without yin. You cannot have this perception without the opposite condition thereof. That's why we have duality. That's why we must have evil in this world. That's why we must have the opportunity to perceive all of it, because we can only learn what is pleasure by learning the degradations and the degrees of pain. It's the contrast that makes it so. The contrast is divine. Divinity is when we find the balance within ourselves. It's not by eradicating ourselves of darkness. It's by learning to accept and fall in love with it, just as it is.
Trippy dippy question, Robert, which is initially everything was all one, divided itself to witness itself again and again and again and again and again and again. It's been doing that onwardsly. Part of my mind, and maybe this is just a limitation of the mind, something's whole, divides it into two. What's the medium that the two sit in? Because immediately when you've gone to two, somehow my mind says there's got to be three, because two need to be contained within something, don't they? I've been sort of stuck there for a while. Have you thought about anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, we're moving to a trinary system right now. That's why quantum computing doesn't have only ones and zeros. It has ones, zeros, and x's. It's the chi, the alpha chi omega. The chi, the x, is a superposition that can be both 1 and 0. And it relates exactly to what I just said about 0 to the power of 0 equals 1. Because 0.9 repeating infinitely is equivalent to 1. There's mathematical proofs on that. It's not that it's rounding to 1, it is 1. And you look at 0.9 by itself, 9 holds the superposition of being 0, because anything you add to the number 9 will come back to the number you added to it. So 3 plus 9 equals 12. And 12 is 1 plus 2 in mod 9 analysis is still 3. 22 plus 9 equals 31. So 2 plus 2 equals 4, and 31 is still 4, 3 and 1 in mod 9 analysis. So it's as if the 9 is a placeholder for 0. So 0.9 repeating can be both 0 and 1. That is what a superposition is. And that's what's happening in the world right now. It's separating out into yin, yang, and xin, or Shen, as it's pronounced in Chinese. It's yin, Shen, yang.
What's Shen?
Shen is godliness, the return of God on earth.
I like the sound of that.
Yang. And God is all of us. It's not separate from us. That's the thing. Okay, so here's what it looks like. beyond duality. Yin, feminine energy. Shen, yang. Shen is the green. There's a Chinese character for it. This is what we're moving towards now. That's what we've now basically moved into. In Hebrew, it's Shin. In Korean, it's also Shin. This is like God's house. It's like back on earth. This is earth, this character right here. Earth, and then this is the symbol for God. So God on earth. And these are the symbologies of it, right? You could see it as these different Yahweh with the Shin in the center, which becomes Yeshua. In Sanskrit, it's Guru, right? Ru and Gu. Guru is just light coming from darkness. In mathematics, it's the Euler number. It's golden ratio, pi and Euler. And together they make a symbol that looks like one. O-N-E.
Sure.
Consciousness is genius at leaving us these kinds of things, right, that we can figure out.
Scattered clues everywhere.
It's scattered clues literally everywhere.
All the way up.
And it's incredibly beautiful and mind-boggling that it's like that, but it is. And it's intense. And the last thing I'll show you is this. I found another picture of it, which is good. So you're quite right. So the things that you're basically channeling are exactly related to this. You just didn't necessarily know. So here's the Shen, right? So divine balance. This is the Alpha and Omega. So Alpha on this side, here's the A, here's the Omega, but it's Alpha Chi Omega.
This is why you called it the Chi. Yeah.
And
it's
this
ruled by
is
Mercury.
achievement of the balance. The copper, the subconscious mind, the darkness, the feminine is Venus. Taurus is Alpha. Aleph means bull.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then finding the diamond heart within is the Philosopher's Stone. Shen is described as our spirit or higher consciousness, the most valued of our three treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen. Shen reflects our higher nature as humans. It is exemplary of the love that lies in our hearts, whose qualities include compassion, kindness, generosity, acceptance, forgiveness, and tolerance. It manifests as wisdom, and its strength or weakness informs our capacity to carry broad perspectives and understandings of our lives and others, to rise above the polarities of good, bad, right, and wrong. It is our spiritual radiance that it's at its strongest and can help cultivate a non-discriminatory, non-judgmental awareness needed to become wise, resilient, and powerful. Because Shen resides in our organ of perception, intuition, and expression, the heart, it deeply affects our ability to be guided in the right direction in life. It affects how strongly we are guided by intuition or misguided by hurt, stress, anxiety, and pain that remains unexpressed in the heart after traumas.
I feel like this has come full circle. This is the authenticity piece. I do wonder if, at the moment there are parts of us that are out of sight that we need to proclaim in order to step fully in.
We have to be able to see our dark, accept it, and love it. And when we do so, then our existence can become magical and beautiful. There's no limitation. The only limitations we experience are the ones that are self-limiting beliefs.
Exciting.
There's no other to fight against.
Yeah. So just, yeah.
You are the other. We all are. You can't escape Earth by like getting rid of all the bad aspects of Earth. The only thing that's going to happen if you want to take on deforestation as your challenge of life, you're only going to live in a world with more and more deforestation. The more you judge something, the more you create it.
So how do you address the issue?
You learn acceptance and stop trying to get rid of things in the world you don't like. And each one of those things that you're trying to get rid of has a a seed of some knowledge and awareness that will trigger you within for the purpose of realizing that the separation is only illusory. You're not separate from that thing. You are that thing. These are aspects of you that you're unaware of, and you've purposely left yourself unaware because of experiences of shame and guilt. You decided, I am not that. That's why the name of God and divinity is recognizing that you are that. That's why it's there all along. I am that I am. The building of the persona is exactly the opposite. I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm not this. And then judging it at everyone else. Once you finally realize I am that I am, then you could transcend. Then you remember your divinity. Then you remember why you're here, that there were no mistakes and that everything was chosen exactly, meticulously, according to plan. For a beautiful divine purpose. And then the suffering transmutes. You know, Richard Rudd says, awakening is a series of softenings. I add to that transmutes pain into purpose. And turns lead into the gold of soul alchemy. That's the true alchemy, is when you can face any circumstance and just through your own perception decide this is the best thing that ever happened to me. It doesn't matter how bad it is. So we all can change through our own soul alchemy, our experience with things. We've all had experiences. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me, that it became the best thing that ever happened to me. And that realization is God, knowledge, and wisdom. Death exists for a reason. We all are afraid of death. We all want to run away from death, but it's actually fundamental to life. And there's no such thing as death. That's the illusion. And we chose every single bit of it. So then people would ask, well, why would someone choose to be starving? Why would someone choose to be this? Why would someone choose to be that? Look, if I were a mountain climber, I would not be happy climbing the hill behind my house. I would want to take on Mount Everest. And if I knew that death wasn't real, I'd be like, look, put me in there. I want to try it all. Sure, the first 4 or 5 times I'd die making love to the love of my life. But then after that, I'd be like, I want to die in a fiery cataclysm. I want to be a James Bond villain. I want to be all these different things, and I want to experience every single thing, because it doesn't matter how we die, because we all die. The only thing that matters is how we decide to live.
Does that lead to part of your fascinations in terms of ancient civilizations and looking at all the different ways that we've lived in the past?
Oh yeah, for sure, because I'm like adding up all the different ways that I died. I want to know, what was it about that experience that led me to have this experience, and why did I leave things to myself through time to find?
Because you do
We
see it
think
that
that
way.
the journey outside of us is a journey. We all say, oh yeah, well, the hero's journey is not a journey outside of you in the external world. It's a journey within. But then finally you realize, wait a minute, okay, yeah, it's a journey within. So I'm going to go and become a hermit, and I'm not going to go in the outer world around me, so that I can go back out in the outer world around me and then realize that, wait, all the places I'm visiting, all the things I'm doing are merely reflections of what's inside of me. Because it's a U-inverse. It's not a universe. Every person you meet, every circumstance you encounter, every place you go has significance and meaning when you understand that they are all divine communication from the other side of you. And those communications come in the form of synchronicities. And those extreme synchronicities come in the form of miracles. And then you start realizing that faith can actually move mountains. And you start realizing, wait, I now have new spiritual gifts of telepathy, and I have new spiritual gifts of telekinesis. And I always had them. They were just like a software that was grayed out. Then there's a functionality. You see the functionality, but it's grayed out. You can't really actually press it until you believe that you can.
And that's all it takes to bring it online.
That's all it takes to bring it online. Becoming aware of it is 9/10 of it. In a matrix of mind, it's only awareness that changes everything. Because there is no physicality. There is no reality. It's all a function of our mind space.
Doesn't really, well, kind of exist, but doesn't really exist in superposition until we're looking at it even, based on what you said before as well.
That's right. I mean, it's all a wave of potentiality. I mean, for all we know, we could be in a big, giant plasma screen. Plasma has the ability to, and it probably is. Plasma has the ability to what? You're an engineer. Plasma is like an electron soup. It's a fourth state of matter. Solid, liquid, gas, plasma. Plasma is able to shear electrons off of their entangled protons. And then you can recohere those electrons back on through electromagnetic caging effects, standing waves. So are we in like a plasma, like 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional TV screen?
God knows. My
That literally plasma can create all of the stuff around us instantaneously at the speed of light.
my mental trip is the Hadron Collider, because they fire electrons and they like they see, and they've opened up little mini black holes when the thing happens. But we also know that a black hole is kind of infinite as well, and so within black holes, it's just like there's universes within there, and so it's like, are we living in someone's Hadron Collider, and then we're doing the same thing with our Hadron Collider, and then Hadron Colliders all the way up and all the way down, and it's just super trippy to contemplate.
It could very well be, my friend. You know, it's funny. I had the opportunity to take Nassim to meet with Kip Thorne, who's the physicist at UCI. And, we went to this dinner event, and Nassim, decided to bring, and I arranged it, and decided to bring this gigantic book on gravity. And, he wanted Kip to
There's
sign
nothing
it.
written in it. It was just to prove a point. Sorry.
yeah, totally. And I have the recording of when Nassim was like giving him this gigantic book. He's like, "Can you, I'm good." So he took a book for him to sign, and then he took a book to give as a gift that, was kind of a summation of his works and stuff. It was like this gigantic book. And I was like, okay, this is one of those epic moments I got to get on film. It was back in 2017, maybe 2018. Yeah. And that's the night that I told Nassim, he was in my office, and I said, hey, I have a feeling that time is actually like a Klein bottle or a Mobius strip. That what we think is our distant past might actually be our distant future. And it's kind of like how space and time are linked together. If you walk west and you could walk all the way across the planet, you'll end up coming to the same place you started from, but coming from the east. Why is it different for time? So this is probably enough of a trippy conversation today.
Oh, I wanted to hear about the Tower of Babel.
Oh, Tower of Babel. I'll give you the Tower of Babel. Yes. Sorry, I missed that one.
But I totally agree. It has been a totally mind-expanding, mind-expanding yet heart welcoming.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. It's like this whole thing. It's a beautiful universe we live in. It's like just realize for what it is and fall in love with it just as it is. It's so epic. It's like, wow. It's so beautiful. So this was just from today. I just literally recorded this. I screenshot this today. Wow. On Gaia. So the whole thing is kind of like talking about, the pyramids and stuff. I'll give you a few clips.
These pyramids have baffled all who have studied them. But the mainstream argument for pyramids as being strictly burial tombs is sharply challenged. What other evidence does this sacred sand conceal that could alter the mainstream timeline for the rise of human civilizations?
The area that is called the Pyramid Fields is a mysterious area that stretches all the way from Giza, just outside of Cairo, all the way down to Dashur. This entire area has pyramids that remain in different states of preservation. Some of them, when you look at them, look like a mound of earth because they are so deteriorated, and some of them, such as the ones on Giza, are very clearly beautiful pyramids.
There are a number of different pyramid fields in Egypt.
Giving a kind of a backdrop on, what are the different pyramid fields and stuff. And so this is what they call the pyramid field. It's got Giza all the way down to Saqqara and, of course, to Shur,
right,
where the bent pyramid is. But there's another place right here.
There's quite the network of underworld initiation and burial that is associated with the Memphis necropolis.
Roughly 8 kilometers or 5 miles northwest of the Giza Plateau sits an anomalous archaeological site named Abu Rawash. This lesser-known location, often referred to as being the home to the pharaoh Djedefre's lost pyramid, contains the remains of 2 pyramid bases and looks down on the Giza Plateau from roughly 300 feet higher above sea level. The ancient history of Abu Rawash appears to be very turbulent and contains many more questions than answers.
Everybody is aware of Giza. This is where you have the 3 great pyramids there of Khufu, his son Khafre, and his son Menkaure. There's a whole family group here. But there is a missing link with all of this, and that is Abu Rawash. And when you get there, you climb a hill, and all you see in front of you to start with is a massive debris field. It's like some kind of cataclysm has struck this pyramid and virtually destroyed it almost down to the ground. And you walk amongst these huge blocks of stone weighing tons apiece, and eventually in the center of it there's this massive pit with this causeway going down into it, which is gigantic. And you look around and you wonder what the hell has gone on here in the past. I mean, who was Djedefre? Why did he build here, and why was his pyramid destroyed?
Here is a guy, Djedefre, who's the second son of King Khufu, who allegedly built the Great Pyramid. His older brother dies, and now Djedefre has an opportunity to leave a monument for eternity. He would look out at what we think of as the Giza Plateau today and see one pyramid, that belonging to his father. And you would think he would want to build right next to his father. He'd want to be close to him for eternity. But he doesn't do that. He goes 5 miles northwest. He goes to a high ground. He stands on this high ground, what is today called Abu Rawash, and he looks north into the delta. You can see all the way to the Mediterranean. Right. He looks across the Nile River and he sees Heliopolis, the city of the sun. He says, I'm going to be the first pharaoh that's going to take the name Son of Ra, son of the sun, and I'm going to build my pyramid here. And it's called Djedefre's Starry Sky. And it's a magnificent building according to descriptions. It's made of granite, but it's got a skin on it that's made of an alloy of gold, silver, and copper that shimmered in the sun. It had to have just been absolutely magnificent. But what's fascinating about his story is that he completely abandons the magnificence of what we see today in the Pyramid of Khufu. When he builds his pyramid, he doesn't build the chambers on the inside like his father did. He builds them underground. He doesn't build his pyramid from scratch. He builds it on top of a pile of rubble. And as time will tell, his pyramid disintegrates, either of its own volition or it's destroyed, possibly by some external force or simply by people coming and harvesting its stones to build other complexes. Today, we're left with the mystery and these questions of why didn't he build on the Giza Plateau like his younger brother did? Why did he go off to this mysterious place? What was it that prompted him to go there?
Okay, so there's like this big pit there and everything. It's massive.
Saw that.
And so these guys are all trying to explain it. And then
and wasn't able to restore it.
As the relics from this perch above Giza continue to puzzle alternative researchers, a clue left to us from an Italian cartographer may spark a new debate on an unsolved ancient legend.
I was in Florence and had the opportunity to visit the Galileo Museum. It's an amazing place. And one of the artifacts that was in there that caught my attention was a map titled the Fra Mauro Map by a cartographer from the 15th century. He was Italian, and he'd actually taken the painstaking effort to draw out every aspect of the known world at that time. This is 1457. One of the first places I went to as I looked at this map is I looked straight for Egypt. So I looked for the Nile River, but I was unable to find the Nile River. It was under a different name, listed as a river named Gihon. I immediately thought, why would he have named the river Gihon? Gihon is a reference to the Bible in Genesis. The place where the four rivers meet is the Garden of Eden. And the four rivers are supposed to be the Tigris, Euphrates, the Gihon River, and the Pishon River. Why was the Gihon listed as the Nile River? I also noticed that the Giza Plateau had 5 pyramids on it, not 3. This and many other questions led me to investigate this. And what I found has the potential to dramatically shift how we perceive and see all the sites of Egypt versus the Mesopotamian sites. And in particular, it pointed directly to the word Babylonia, which I'd recognized because Babylon is the old name for Cairo. In fact, today it's even marked by the Fortress of Babylon, which is not far to the northwest of Giza. As I look more deeply into this subject of Babylonia, I noticed that 8 kilometers northwest of the Giza Plateau is a very enigmatic place that sits immediately to the west of what we would consider Old Babylon. This is another pyramid complex that has 2 pyramids that have been partially destroyed, flattened, as it were. They sit high atop a plateau, both pyramids being made of the very expensive and difficult to quarry rose granite that comes all the way from Aswan, a full 800 kilometers away. That's a lot of effort to undertake. As we look around the Abu Rawash Plateau today, we'll find the strewn blocks literally hundreds of meters, many of them 10 to 15 or even 20 tons in weight, that have been tossed hundreds of meters from the center point to where those blocks sit today. This is a really enigmatic place that requires a lot more study. And given its reference directly across along the Gihon River, matching with Babylon, I couldn't help but ask myself the question, might there be more to this story yet to be unfolded? The Djedefre satellite pyramid would have stood a 103.7 feet high. But because it sits 300 feet higher in elevation than the Giza Plateau, and because of its very steep architecture, it would have appeared to tower over the Giza Plateau. The Great Pyramid is 481 feet, but the Djed Pyramid that is immediately behind the Djedefre satellite would have stood about 600 feet high when compared with the same elevation with the Giza Plateau. This would have by far looked as though it would have been the tallest building in all of the land and could have seen very likely for many, many tens of miles in distance from both the Giza Plateau as well as from Abu Rawash. What did these pyramids represent? And their construction, why was it made out of the most expensive rose quartz granite that is only found in the sarcophagus in the king's chamber? Because of its expense. Both of these pyramids had casing stones that were entirely rose granite. Crystalline pyramids. Both of these pyramids somehow exploded. How did those blocks get so far away, weighing 10, 20, even 30 tons? We only have more and more questions related to what the exact purpose was of this plateau high upon this hilltop. What was the meaning of these pyramids, and why do we have no reference to them throughout any of our history? Now, this Abu Rawash pyramid, because it has an 86.4 foot base width, means that its height would have been 103.7 feet high. And then a 60-degree pyramid slope angle immediately adjacent to it, to the diagonal. And what you find there is that that pyramid with a 60-degree angle would have stood approximately 300 feet high from the plateau, but the plateau being 300 feet higher than the Giza plateau, referencing a pyramid that would have been approximately 600 feet high with a super steep slope angle. It would have definitely left an imposing feeling on anybody looking at it from the Giza plateau. And maybe the reference is something that's closer to heaven. The base of the Jedefre satellite pyramid, 86 feet, 0.4, so 86.4 feet, which references 86,400 seconds in one day. Is this telling us something about the relationship of the arc of time? As I started to look at this and imagine standing on the Giza plateau, if I looked up to look at these foreboding structures, crystalline pyramids high upon this hilltop far off in the distance, having a pink granite hue, I started to ask, might there be any reference historically to these pyramids? And I could only find one location. These extraordinarily tall structures might be a direct reference to the story of the Tower of Babel. I also noted that the relationship to Babylon, as well as the relationship as mentioned in the Bible, the Genesis account in chapter 10, where we notice that this structure of the Tower of Babel was supposed to have been built next to the Gihon River, which also is where Babylon would have been found, or Babylonia, as we find on the Fra Mauro map. I couldn't help but ask myself the question, given the age and the large block construction, might this location of Abu Rawash actually have been the place where Nimrod, the son of Cush, would have built these two pyramid structures to represent the Tower of Babel, an ascent back into heaven? As we dive more deeply into the biblical account in Genesis chapter 10, we see that Nimrod, the builder of the Tower of Babel, which is where the languages were supposedly confounded, was the son of a very famous person by the name of Cush, who was the grandson of Noah. Noah of Noah's the Ark. Nimrod was known as the Great Hunter. Notice also the reference to the Great Hunter of Orion. Nimrod, being the son of Cush, would have come from where the Cushite people came. And in the Bible, it actually references as well that the river Gihon goes into and flows into the place of Cush, because Gihon actually means gushing water. The word gush or kush is from this derivative. So therefore, as we look at the place where this river came from in southern Egypt, we then must ask ourselves the question, is it more likely that the Cushite people that are referenced in the Bible were in the ancient land of Chem? And in fact, I could find no reference in contrast to the people of Cush ever having visited Mesopotamia. So if we take the biblical account at face value, and also that Josephus and the Nile River was known anciently as the Gihon River, we must consider Abu Rawash as a potential location for the ancient Tower of Babel.
The story of the Tower of Babel is very interesting, especially concerning the origin of human languages. But let's explore this notion that the Babylon we know of is a replica city of something that existed far earlier, a city that we now know as Cairo. And what if the Tower of Babel was there and it was destroyed? How would that affect our understanding of human history? The ramifications of changing the original location of the city of Babylon are incomprehensible. It would rewrite history books. It would change mainstream understanding of human history. and it would change what we know about human language.
Prior to the Younger Dryas incident, there seems to be the suggestion that there was a worldwide network going on, and that there were certain areas, particularly like this area in Egypt, but also at Teotihuacan in Mexico and Xi'an in China, where they were building these pyramids for a very specific purpose. And we know they're all related by the measurements of their bases and their heights, and it's very clear they were all based on the megalithic yard, and so there was a connection between them all. So ultimately, that whole region where these pyramids were being built, these pyramids were literally meant to be towers to reach the heavens. Even if we look at them as stargates, that's really what a stargate is, right? You're creating a tower to reach the heavens. And they were all working with each other, which means they all had enough of a similar language to be able to do this. And then after the cataclysm, everyone got separated, languages started to develop separately, and this is very much in line with that Tower of Babel story. It's quite possible that this region of Egypt was the main source of this story, and that later researchers began to realize that and pointed to this being the true Babylon.
Well, and it's also interesting too that the name Babylon, do you know what it comes from?
No.
It's from Bobby. Bobby is a baboon.
All right.
And what is the baboon a symbol of? The Egyptian god Thoth.
Right.
So Babylon is actually a reference to Thoth, city of Thoth. So why would he have been Thoth, the Egyptian god? Why would he have been in Mesopotamia? He wouldn't have been. He was in Egypt. He was in Chem.
And the place was
What
called
they
Babylon.
built as Babylon at the time of Nebuchadnezzar was a Neo-Babylon. The original Babylon, I believe very firmly, was actually in Egypt. That's why today it's still called Babylon. Old Cairo is called Babylon.
Really? They still refer to it as that? Yeah, right. Fascinating. And so the Tower of Babel was a real megalithic structure, by the sounds of things.
I believe so, yeah. I believe it was Abu Rawash Pyramid, the Djed Pyramid. And those two pyramids, the Giza Plateau represents the throat chakra, and those two pyramids represent the crown chakra together. So it's pineal gland and pituitary gland. That's why they have their particular reference points the way that they do. And this is all getting kind of, revealed now, because it's time for consciousness to have this be revealed.
Embrace it.
Absolutely. It's just that time now. So here it is. So these are the temples along the Nile, and the temples are all symbologies towards Osiris, because they're all different chakra points, chakras along this Nile, which is the spine. The throat chakra is represented by Orion. That's why Orion has the 3 belt stars in the shape that it does. And then you go up to after the bridge from the heart to the brain, then the brain comes on, right? And so this is where you have the pituitary gland and the pineal gland touch through a breathing technique. And that creates this philosopher's stone enlightenment and the crown chakra activation and the 1,000-petaled lotus flower.
Wow, the geometry of it is all a bit...
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it
and
really
then
is.
even the number of tributaries of the Nile Delta coming out are 7. Each one the different colors of the 7 colors of the chakras. Even though we actually have 24 chakras, they're male and female depending on which side of the Nile you're on. So, for example, Dendera is the heart chakra, and it's represented by Hathor, but the masculine side of it is Abydos Temple. Each one of these has a different musical note and references different astrological constellations.
I can see that written on there, yeah. Different frequencies and
So all
hertz
of
as
this
well.
is now starting to come out.
Do you think us uncovering more of our past is an interesting thing because we're now ready for it, but we're also more prepared for a future? Is that kind of like, because it seemed like we were a bit more localized to our place and where we were previously. Like you said, more conversations around extraterrestrial, more conversation around our ancient history is opening up. We seem to be more open. Is that because we're more open to the future as well? Are the two things related?
Yeah, because we're moving into higher dimensional perception. As we transcend duality and as we move beyond judgment into love, we perceive at higher levels of perception. That allows that objectivity to be able to perceive the self. And as we, I mean, think about the things that make our vision like blurry and provide opacification to our vision at higher dimension is the fact that we can't see the negative aspects of ourselves internally. And maybe time itself is from that. You know, in the Bible, it says, who told you were naked, Adam? Because Adam said he was ashamed. And he said, why are you ashamed? Well, because I'm naked. Well, who told you you're naked? Did you eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil that I commanded that thou shalt not eat thereof? For the dayest thou do so, thou shalt surely die. And the knowledge of good and evil is actually forming the tree of knowledge, which is the opposite tree of the tree of life. So actually, maybe we just change the name. The tree of knowledge should actually just be the tree of death. And that as soon as we start to create this notion of separation of light and dark and good and evil and all of these things that create then shame and blame, we then create our personas around that. And as a result, the passage of time. Eating and judging. So what we're really doing is denying our inner aspects of ourself. The darkness within, which then is causing us to experience this notion of time. So that's why I've noticed huge benefits as soon as you start to no longer judge. If you can abandon and move beyond judgment and to choose love instead, what happens? Well, in that context, what happens is you start to age backwards.
You did a video on this. You did a video on this.
I did a video on this. Yeah, along with fasting, because eating does the same thing. We're literally, that's the physical form of what we're doing by avoiding our negative aspects. So I'm going to have to go because I have another.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. You've been amazing, Robert. As always. I just want to leave with, dude, that even just the simple distillation of love versus judgment instead of love versus hate has been something of your work that's just improved my life dramatically. I walk around now and, you know, because hate is so nebulous. I don't hate anything. I don't see it show up, but I judge. So, it's hard to avoid. And so now I can actually see where the work for greater love lives. And man, just what you continue to uncover, the trips you continue to take people on, and just your consistent explorations. And yeah, I love today's conversation about the chaos and the order and being order all the way up, just everything you're affording. I want to thank you for today's conversation, but as always, brother, it's your life's work and your life's journey and your passion. So I'm just wholeheartedly grateful for you. So thank you so much for doing this and sharing yourself here today.
Thank you, my friend, and I'd love to have you on one of my trips sometime. So,
I'd love to. I just got to let the little kids grow up a little bit,
yeah,
and then I'll be there for sure. Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, brother, man. We'll stay in touch. I'll let you go.
Thank you so much. We'll see you later.
You inspired soul, you made it through to the end of another incredible episode. Thank you so much for your inspirations to evolve. It is such an honor to be your brother walking this incredible path by your side. Touch wood. Now, just on screen in a moment, I'm going to invite on a couple more episodes for you to dive in even deeper if you so wish. Before that happens, I just want to take a quick moment to thank all of you again that are subscribed to the channel. You are the lifeblood of this channel. Everything you see around here is empowered and powered, like I like to say, by your subscription to the channel. For all of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do take a moment, hit that subscribe button just below. As I'm saying the word subscribe, it's lighting up in the colors of the Inspired Evolution behind me. Please take a moment, click that subscribe button, hit that bell notification icon. It helps with everything that we're doing here, championing love, positivity, and wisdom around the world. Thank you so much in advance for your incredible support. And as promised, on screen now, we did a previous episode with Robert Edward Grant, diving deeper into his personal origin story and how he came to this level of awareness. Today, he went in super deep and authentic into where he is at the present moment. But also, if you want to see trace back to some of his origin story, you can tune into that episode. Also on screen, we'll have for you an episode with Greg Braden, which recently came out. This was really profound about the future of humanity and how we're going to navigate it with grace. And he actually finds God in our DNA. This was really profound. You can tune into that one there. And also a third episode for you to take your inspirations further, onwards, upwards, and inwards. Go on, take your pick, make your click, and I'll see you in the next one.